I'll just ask you your name and where you live and how you learned about this CN Rail acquisition.
I'm Joe Guerrieri. I live in Flint Creek in the village of Barrington, and I've been involved in gaining information about this whole situation for the last several months. We became aware of it through our community association and through our own website, flintcreek.org.
Flintcreek.org, that is, FLINTCREEK.org.
That's right.
And Joe, I understand you have some particular concern about, let's call it Canadian National's business model.
Yes, well, what I'm most concerned about is the claim that this is a good move for the entire region, when in fact this is moving train traffic into even higher density suburban areas and out of reduced density areas in the city. Overall, if we really wanted to solve a regional rail transportation problem, it would be to find a much farther western route where there's much lower density of population. And that is something that would take more agreement from government leaders so that they could, if necessary, take eminent domain to create links in rails that might not already exist. The opposition might not be as great in a far western option, but it also might bring economic opportunity to those that would have fair market value given to them for a slice of their property where otherwise there might be growing crops that aren't bringing them as much value at this time.
Do you think, Joe, also in less dense areas it might bring some economic opportunity in terms of employees to the freight yards that would have to be created for the offloading of the trains for goods that were coming here into the Chicagoland area?
Well, while that might be a possibility, I'm thinking of the opportunity for the landowners, for them to be able to get some cash for their land where there may not be a high demand for their property today. And at the same time, it would not decrease the quality of life at the same type of rate that it is in a highly populated, dense suburb like the ring suburbs that we're talking about in the west and northwest of Chicago.
Now, Joe, is this your first public event on this Canadian National issue?
No, I've also gone to the meeting that was at the Macrae Country Club on Route 14, and that was very well attended. There were a huge amount of people there. It was informative, and I think it helped also raise awareness. One of the biggest challenges we've had is ensuring that there is awareness. Some of our own neighbors in our community aren't aware. They don't read the newspapers, and even if they do, it's not in the local papers like the Pioneer Press. They have not done a great job of covering the facts around the story. But I have noticed that they've been accepting the money from CN in order to print full-page ads supporting the CN position, which might be disincenting them to cover the remaining part of the story.
Well, we certainly hope that they keep a firm line between their advertising and their editorial. Since you were at the meeting, I think that was on January 9th, and today, do you see any movement or in the Canadian National's position at all vis-a-vis their attitude toward this project or towards the citizens who might be impacted by it?
The only movement that I've seen is that and I don't have the facts right here in front of me, but there is an inconsistency in responses. If you listen to the CN's CEO, when he addresses investors, there's one message that's very different than the message that we get from the representatives here at the table. If you watch their videos and their promotional materials on their website, it's very different than what's being presented in their application to the STB. I'm concerned about their credibility. I'm also concerned about the claims of high safety and high integrity records, and that just isn't the case. As people look more deeply into CN's track record, they'll see that they have a higher than you would expect rate of derailments and security concerns in a highly populated suburban area like Barrington and the surrounding communities. The concern that I have is that there will be a great deal of traffic on the rails, and in turn they have to go through a very sharp curve right in the village of Barrington where it crosses another set of highly used tracks, the commuter rails, the Union Pacific and Metro line. So the concern that we have there is if there is a derailment, cutting off the hospital, first responders on the other side of the track, cutting off U.S. highway and Illinois state highways, this could be disastrous for an event like that. In addition, to all of the groundwater that could be contaminated. The Village of Barrington is supported with 4 municipal wells. If there is a contamination of the groundwater, the entire village would be out of water, and this is a very large problem.
The water issue is very important, and understand that you don't have all your materials with you. Would you care to characterize the CN message to its stockholders as opposed to the CN message that you're hearing elsewhere?
Well, the message to the stockholders is clear. They have invested a great deal in their new shipyards in British Columbia, and on their website and on their videos about this investment that they have touted to their investors, that this is going to be prepared to take on a great deal more traffic than they've ever had. They're trying to take much of the traffic from the southern routes in Long Beach, California. Now, if that's the case, everything that goes east that comes through that rail yard will pass through these tracks. Every single thing that has to go east, that has to go to their Memphis hub. So I think we have to realize that they're estimating approximately an increase of 20 trains a day now. That will not be true for long.
That won't meet the capacity that they need.
Absolutely. If you listen to their message about how much they're planning to grow, this 20 is not based on that projection of how much they're growing. That 20 is based on the projection of how much is being moved from the Chicago lines that already run today. So there is no delta about their increase, yet their message on all their promotional material is quite significant, a growth increase. And that's something that the STB cannot put into their investigation unless we cite that on our documentation of our complaints before February 15th.
That's a very good point. Do you feel that there is a security threat since these materials will be coming across the country directly from British Columbia with effectively no interruption? If the Canadian National has their plan, it will be one long line from British Columbia to, I would presume, their Memphis hub.
I wouldn't know about security threats. I'm more concerned about contaminants and materials that are being transported that might be hazardous in nature. I'm more concerned about that than I am other forms of threat.
The water supply in much of this area is from wells, and we all share an aquifer. Some parts of Barrington, some parts of these villages are on city water, municipal water, but most of us are on wells.
Municipal water is coming from municipal wells. Keep in mind, Barrington, although it's city water, it's from 4 wells.
That's correct.
So, and we had the wells nearly run dry this past summer and the summer before. So the village was under a water austerity, and we continue to operate under a water preservation even now where we don't have that immediate problem. So one spill, one problem anywhere near these tracks would potentially poison the entire aquifer, and all of the water that you might think of as city water, it's really from a well.
No, it is a well, and the nearest link up to Chicago water is, I believe, at Palatine.
That's true.
And they really don't have any excess capacity.
No, and there is
They would not be able
plan.
to give us water.
No, there is no plan and no possible way of bringing that pipe through. Certainly not at the last minute. How would you ever get water to everybody at the last minute? That's just not going to happen. So this is a very large risk.
Very large risk. Another economic concern that we all have is that although in the village of Deer Park we don't accrue anything for property taxes, most of the surrounding community does, and if the property values plummet, that's going to take a big chunk out of public funding. And I'm curious if you've thought about that at all.
Although that's true, and there's all the quality of life issues beyond that. That isn't something that the STB would consider. They're not looking at property values, but they would look at business effect. So this has to be a different focus in order to get the attention of the STB.
However, if the local communities do not have their public funds to repair the roads and provide their police departments, it does have an economic effect. It's a longer time coming, but the effect is equally strong. What do you feel? What is your next step? What will you do after tonight?
Well, we've already written a couple of letters to ensure that that's part of the STB's recorded documentation. We've listed many of the safety-related issues, like 400 times a day school buses are crossing these tracks just in the village of Barrington. These are astronomical safety concerns. In addition to a 55-acre park just having been built along the lines of the tracks.
You're referring to Citizens Park?
That's true. And also the bird sanctuary that is adjacent to it that Lake County has preserved for for these species. The concerns that we have, obviously, are for the environment there and for human safety crossing those tracks.
So if a citizen is watching this who feels that it's a done deal and it's not worth speaking out, what would you say to them?
They have to write the letter. That's the most
And
important
they need
thing.
to respond by February 15th.
Yes.
And do you remember offhand the Surface Transportation Board website?
I don't, but you could go to a website that I've created because it immediately redirects to that site. It's choochoopoopoo.com.
CHOOCHOOPOOPOO.com.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.